Tom Lisiak wasn't a superstar, but he was steady for Chicago until October 30th, 1983, when he deliberately tripped linesman Ron Foyt right after a drop he didn't like. The new abuse of official rule was implemented. Automatic 20-game suspension, appeal denied. This punishment made it clear to everyone that crossing it could lead to the end of your season. Lisiak returned, but trust didn't. 2 more years, and he faded out, with the Blackhawks basically acting like he never wore their sweater. Then, the can't-miss kid, who missed in the worst way. Don Murdoch looked like the next big thing for the Rangers. 32 rookie goals, swagger, and a franchise leaning his way. Then, December 1977 happened. Caught at Toronto's airport with cocaine in his pocket. The league's hammer fell hard. First the full season, then cut to 40 games after rehab, but the damage was already in his head. He came back for the 1979 final run, yet the edge was gone, the touch was dulled, and the label stuck. He bounced to Edmonton and Detroit and out of the NHL in 6 years flat. One stupid moment at Customs, and a career that promised Broadway ended in backroads. Rewind way back and turn the volume up to mayhem. Sprague Cleghorn was a winner and a wrecking ball with 3 cups, a Hall of Fame induction, and a rap sheet of on-ice brutality that kept dragging him toward courtrooms. In 1922, he kicked off a brawl against Ottawa that injured multiple players. In 1923, he swung his stick so viciously that criminal charges followed, and a conviction with a fine was attached. Switch to the border crossing that detonated a career. Bob Probert, the heavyweight of heavyweights, got stopped in March 1989 heading into Detroit. Customs searched him and found cocaine hidden in his underwear. Federal prison for 3 months, NHL suspension. Immigration issues were so severe that he couldn't even travel to Canada, which is a special kind of nightmare if you play for Detroit. He kept grinding in the late 90s, but the arc bent down, not up. He died at 45 in 2010, and while fans still trade stories about the fights, the league doesn't rehearse the part where a star spent time in federal custody because the line between tough and trouble vanished at a checkpoint. Now, the historic gamble and you're gone rulebook lesson. Babe Pratt Hart, winner of the Maple Leaf and Real Deal defenseman, got suspended in January 1946 for betting on NHL games, reportedly not against his own team. After 2 weeks, Babe Pratt Hart received a public apology and was reinstated with a thunderous warning. Next time, it would be a lifetime ban. That warning turned real in 1948 with Don Gallinger and Billy Taylor. Both players placed bets on games, and the evidence suggested they were collaborating with gamblers and possibly involved in game fixing. NHL President Clarence Campbell exposed the league's integrity by imposing lifetime bans on both Don Gallinger and Billy Taylor. 22 years later, they were reinstated, but by then their careers were fossils. The message stuck like tape. Bet on the game, and the game erases you. If that wasn't enough, along came Detroit's Dan Maloney a few months later. November 1975, he grabbed Toronto's Brian Glennie from behind and slammed his head into the ice repeatedly. Ontario charged him with assault, causing bodily harm. He was acquitted months later, but like with Forbes, the stain stayed. The Wings traded him. Everyone remembered the arrest more than the shifts. It signaled a new era. When the line between hard hockey and real-world assault got crossed, you didn't just sit for 5 sometimes, you sat in front of a judge. Speaking of judges, how about the night the bench leapt the glass? December 23, 1979, Bruins at Rangers. A fan takes a shot at Stan Jonathan and grabs his stick. Terry O'Reilly scales the glass like a cage fighter. Mike Milbury and Peter McNabb right behind him, and suddenly we're in a brawl with civilians. Milbury famously rips off a shoe and swings it. Suspensions rain down, police get involved, and rinks react by raising the glass. The Bruins don't celebrate the shoe game, and when people say Milbury, a lot of their brains go to footwear, not 754 NHL games. Then the drunk driving case that still hits like a truck. January 1984, Craig McTavish went out drinking in Boston, drove, crashed, and 26-year-old Kim Radley died. He pled guilty to vehicular homicide and DUI and served a year in jail, the first active NHLer to go to prison after killing someone while drunk. The Bruins cut ties. The Oilers reopened a door. He won 4 cups and ran a team later on. The tension is brutal. A family forgave him and asked him to speak to kids. A woman is still gone. The NHL plays the dynasty reels and fast forwards past how that roster spot opened. The 2000s brought the ugliest kind of replay. February 21st, 2000. Marty McSorley chased Donald Brashear and swung a stick into his head from behind. Brashear seized on the ice and suffered a severe concussion. Vancouver police charged McSorley with assault with a weapon. The court convicted him and gave 18 months probation. The NHL suspended him for a year, and no one ever signed him again. The league won't package that clip for any greatest hits segment. You can't sell that as part of the brand. 4 years later, it got worse. March 8, 2004, Todd Bertuzzi hunted Steve Moore for a weeks-old hit. He grabbed Moore from behind, sucker punched him, and drove him into the ice under a pile. Moore's neck broke in 3 places. His career ended that night. Criminal charge, guilty plea, probation, and community service, a 17-month suspension overlapping the lockout, and a civil suit that finally settled in 2014. Bertuzzi played again. Moore didn't. No one in Vancouver cuts a remember when package for that. Dark turns off the ice doubled down too. Mike Danton in 2004 tried to hire a hitman to kill his agent, David Frost, using a go-between who turned out to be connected to an undercover cop. He pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder, got 7.5 years, served about 5, and tried to scrape together a career far from the NHL logo. 87 NHL games, the league didn't wait to hit delete. Slava Voinov's case was domestic violence that left visible damage, cuts, bruises, choking marks, the kind of details that make your stomach turn. He pled no contest to misdemeanor. He suffered a corporal injury, served time in a pay-to-stay jail, was detained by immigration, and then received an indefinite suspension from the NHL before returning to Russia to achieve stardom in the KHL. Every rumor of an NHL return lights the outrage fuse because 2 cups don't erase a single documented night. And yes, suspensions sometimes stretch so long they look like barricades. Chris Simon earned 25 games for a 2-handed stick to Ryan Hallweg's face in 2007, then stomped on Jarkko Ruutu's leg that December and got 30 games, 55 total for 2 acts that could have been far worse. Teams finally stopped taking the risk. Jesse Boulouris's 25-gamer for driving his stick into Ryan Kessler's face told the same story. Repeat the same stupid violence, and you don't get to keep a key card. Rafi Torres set the record in 2015 with 41 games for a preseason headshot on Jakob Silfverberg preseason, as in doesn't even count after a rap sheet of head hits that had already burned through the league's patience. The pattern writes itself. Repeat offender is a career death sentence even before the suspension ends, and the final ghost is the one the league truly erased. Billy Kutu, 1927. Stanley Cup Final went from fight to felony-level fury, bench-clearing chaos, and then an attack on the officials after the horn. NHL President Frank Calder dropped the hammer. Lifetime ban for on-ice violence, pure and simple. His name still sits on Montreal's 1924 Cup. His ban got softened years later for lower leagues and eligibility, but he never returned to the NHL. No Hall of Fame debates, no soft focus tributes. The official response to the assault on a referee was an administrative blackout, as if he had never existed and as if those hands had never touched silver.